Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you an AFC wildcard preview between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Houston Texans. Now let's take a look at some keys to victory for both teams, starting with the Bengals.
When you look at the Bengals defense in this matchup, the battle has to be won on the interior. So you have to look at Geno Atkins and company, those defensive tackles winning at the point of attack. If you get interior pressure, if you get penetration versus a zone blocking scheme, you could essentially shut it down. That'll allow those linebackers like Vontaze Burfict, Ray Maluga, those guys to play downhill and make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. And that's going to be the biggest key. If they can slow down a running game, something that they didn't do last season versus the same team, if they can do that, then they'll allow them to play better pass defense and get more aggressive in trying to find out ways to take away Andre Johnson. But let's go inside the lab and look at this Bengals offense to see what they can do this time around versus that very aggressive Texans defense.
The Cincinnati Bengals can have some success versus the Houston Texans' aggressive defense by utilizing the choice route, and I think they should do it out of the shotgun with two backs, or however they want to get creative with the personnel packages. But we're going to show you how they can be effective. The choice route is a simple read route for the quarterback. He's reading one player and he has a choice, hence the term choice route. And this is how we have it drawn up. Tight end is going to be flex, that's your Y. Your flanker, that's your Z, and your split is your X. And you have two backs in the backfield. Now they can get creative. They can put a back and a fullback, two fullbacks, a tight end and a fullback, a running back and a receiver. However they want to get creative, they can do that here in the backfield. But it also gives you the ability to run out this formation to either side, so that way you're well balanced. You get your pullings and your traps going as well, and you can also pass out this formation. So I think it's a balanced set for what the Bengals want to do offensively. And the reason why it's a choice route, because the quarterback, like I said before, has a choice. He's going to read this guy right here. This outside backer will be put into a bind because we're going to have the split stem up, work his way, and settle down right here on a hook route. And that's going to put this guy in a bind because either he's going to buzz out to this flat that we're going to run the running back on, or he's going to sit underneath. Depending on the coverage, cornerback may bail out over top if they try to bracket the wide receiver. But this is where the rub can happen, or a pick can happen, and could essentially take this guy out of the play. So the quarterback drops back, read this guy, wherever he goes, boom, you can drop right there. On the front side of the formation, we're going to have the simple concept, your scissors concept, out, slant combination. So quick read forward, the quarterback on this side, and we're going to hold this backer here by running a simple hook route. That could be your release valve, your dump off. So different ways the Bengals can be creative in their approach with this concept. Why? Because again, it puts the outside linebackers in a bind. It gives Andy Dalton a quicker read so he can get rid of the football, and that way you can keep the offense on pace. Now, if they want to get creative, like I said, they could put two wide receivers back here, and that way you're really in an empty set. That's how they can cause problems for the Texans defense. But in order to get rid of that football quick, you got to find ways to create rub routes, create those natural picks in order to be effective.
Now let's move over to the Texans in this ball game, and a lot of people want to focus on the secondary and their struggles, but I think that is just a byproduct of getting pressure on the quarterback. So when you look at guys up front, guys like J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless, who I think has had a phenomenal second half of the season, he's been playing a lot well. So if J.J. Watt and those guys can get pressure on Andy Dalton, it's just going to make the back end look that much better. And you look for the Texans to be a little bit more healthier going into the playoffs, in my opinion. So they can get pressure on Andy Dalton. Their offensive line does have some weak spots where they can exploit. And like I said before, Whitney Merciless has come on the latter part of the season. I've been very impressed with the rookie. So keep an eye on this matchup. If they're able to get pressure, that goes a long way in making that secondary look a lot better. But let's go inside the lab and look at this Texans offense, see what they did last year versus the Cincinnati Bengals.
When you look at the Texans offense, you love the poetry in motion that is called the zone blocking scheme. And if you go back to last year's playoff game, they essentially were able to move the football down the field, running the football against the Cincinnati Bengals 4-3 defense. And the reason why, they utilized a lot of motions, and they were able just to count the amount of defenders in a certain area, check off to a run to the opposite way, or if they like the advantages on the front side, they ran that play. And it's simple football, guys. If you can count, you can play football. Here's what they were doing last year versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think they can still have the same type of success this game versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati came out in a 4-3 college set. When we call it a college set, it's the linebackers are stacked to the side. Because usually a pro 4-3 will have the backer over here almost in an overlook. So you look at what they did last year, and it was simple. You see right here on a weak side, which is designated by the tight end on the strong side, backside is weak side. 1, 2, 3 defenders. Okay, so now you got 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive, 4 blockers on this side of the football. So this is where the Texans would run the zone. Boom, zone block, combo, get this guy, and they had advantages. Now let's say if they were to put this guy in, let's say if the Bengals were in what we call, if they let's say they walk this backer over here, put the backer on the outside, and the running back was here. You still have this advantage, but this guy can easily blow up the run, and this is a bad look. So what's going to happen, you're going to motion this guy over, and you're going to see a shift. Maybe you're going to see the backer go back. Backer here shifts over, and this guy is going to come, strong safety is going to come down here, and now you have numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. You still have a numbers advantage. So you have 5-on-4. Texans run the football downhill, and they did that a lot. They did it with their formations. They'll widen out a tight end, they'll flank the tight end, and let's say they flexed out this tight end right here. I know I'm making a mess on the board. Let's say they motion the tight end out, flex him out here. Now what that does is you've got the end there, is going to walk out the strong safety. He has to cover the tight end, and now you have the backer in the hole. You still have numbers to be able to run the football. The Texans were really looking at what the Bengals were doing when they utilized motion, and just audibling off of it and running wherever they had the advantage. And I think they can have the same type of success, which is why it's tough to defend the Texans offense, because they can run zone weak, they can run zone strong, they can even run gap plays, which is down the middle. So they can have some success by just utilizing a lot of motion versus the Cincinnati Bengals.
Center Chris Myers is an X factor, in my opinion. It's his job to keep Geno Atkins at bay. If they're able to win that battle, then the Texans will be able to run the football. If not, then it's going to be a long day for the Texans offense, because it's going to get pressure on the ground game and also put pressure on Matt Schaub. And speaking of quarterbacks, Andy Dalton has to be the X factor. He has to be the reason why this team wins and not the reason why they lose. He has to be able to facilitate the football to different targets and not get locked in on A.J. Green. If he can do that, the Bengals definitely have a chance. Now let's take a look at the personnel breakdown in this ball game. Pretty even matchup, and yes, the Bengals offensive line doesn't have a check. They're able to run the football now. You see Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis over 1,000 yards, although 3.8 yards a carry. But I think this is an even matchup in my opinion. The Bengals do have an advantage in special teams that could go a long way in helping determine who wins this ball game. Now here's some of my coaching points for both teams in this matchup. For the Bengals, you have to avoid those self-inflicted wounds, false starts, other penalties, turnovers. That will kill you when you're playing a team like the Texans. And you have to dominate the line of scrimmage on defense. That goes a long way in stopping the running game. And involve other wide receivers. You have talented receivers and other tight ends. Get everyone else involved. That spreads out the offense and also gives the defense much more to worry about. For the Texans, keep your hands up at the line of scrimmage. Like I've said before, Andy Dalton is a flat line thrower. You should be able to get some batted passes. And you want to bracket A.J. Green. You want to force the issue with Dalton. Force him to go to other receivers. That way you can play effective coverage on the other side. And you have to win the special teams battle. You can't avoid a letdown in the most crucial element of a football game. Like the Texans in this game, I think the secondary will look a lot better once that front seven is able to get pressure on Andy Dalton. I think that's what's going to happen. I think they'll play the run on the way to the quarterback, put the Bengals in third and long, second and long type of situations in which they really can tee off on the offensive line and ultimately Andy Dalton. So I think this game will be won by the Texans defense. The offense will stay the course, run the football, operate off play action, but I think the Texans defense will step up and win this one at home. And I want to give a huge shout out to Texans fan forums and Bengal fan forums for always showing football game plan support.